way up there. I was adjusting my camera so that when I do my watercoloring, you can see me. So welcome, everybody. How is everybody doing this evening? I am going to apologize. I feel like I need to stand on my tiptoes for you to see me. Um, I apologize for not coming on this afternoon. I was caught up and had a little bit of issues and couldn't get on. And by the time I got in, I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it tonight. So welcome. My name is Judi Anderson. I'm an independent demonstrator from the United States and team leader of the Happy Stampers and Ink team. I want to welcome all of you, my live viewers on YouTube and on Facebook, and those watching on replay. Please jump in, say hello as you come in. Let me know where you're coming from, and any comments are appreciated. Likes, hearts. And I read the comments on YouTube also, so please let me know how you like this project tonight. So as you all know, I love watercoloring. And this week I'm doing fall projects. I just thought, you know what, we're going to shake it up a little bit this week and let's do a couple fall projects. Well, when I was thinking that, I thought, you know what, I want to do a framed art piece. I love doing framed art pieces. I hang them in my studio and they just bring me such joy. These are great things that you can do as gifts and show your artistic side, especially with watercoloring like this. And tonight's technique is really easy. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple tips along the way. I'm going to show you my original framed art piece that I did. Well, actually, it's not framed yet. I wanted to frame this one instead. But I learned a couple things in doing it. So I wanted to teach you those little tips tonight. And there's nothing wrong with my first one. I just, well, you'll see it later. So what do you say? Let's get started. Okay. So we've got some people on here. I am going to go ahead and get on my phone so that I can possibly see some comments. Okay, I don't want the volume up, I want it down. So I'll be able to see your comments if you're commenting on Facebook, but not YouTube. But I encourage you to comment, even if you're watching on YouTube. So tonight we're going to be using the Celebrate Sunflowers stamp set. And I love this stamp set. I love sunflowers and coneflowers. If you've been with me any period of time, you know that. I love gardening. So we're going to use this and we're going to use the leaves. Now this stamp set does not have a stem. So I am going to give you a little tip tonight on how to create a stem for your sunflower. And I just realized I used my piece that I took out. Now I am using our watercolor paper, and this is a Fluid 100 watercolor paper. I love it. It does have texture, so I'm going to tell you a couple tricks tonight in doing your watercoloring. I have already taped it down on two sides, creating a border around here. I am just using Scotch tape tonight. I'm hoping that it works. I want to do it along the top and the bottom also. So I'm going to line it up with my grid on my self-heating cutting mat. And I'm going at the 1 inch line around, and I lined up my paper so it lined up as close as possible. This top one isn't quite, it's a little bit more than 1 inch. I made sure I lined it up on the sides, but I wasn't paying real close attention to the top and bottom, so they are off just a little bit. So I'm adjusting that with my tape. So I'm just making sure that tape is on there. Now, when I go to peel this off, if it rips, I will just cut it, but I kind of want a white border around there. You can use painter's tape. I don't know what my husband did with my painter's tape, so I am resorting to Scotch tape because that's what I have on hand. I have a paper towel here. I have a baby wipe here. So I'm going to put our stamps over there. And then we're going to be working with two of our water painters. I'm using the wide, the big one, and the medium one. And make sure they're filled with water before you start. I'm also using one of our spritzers. I am going to be using assorted size blocks. Got this one, I've got this one, and I'll explain why I'm using the different size blocks. We're going to be using those to apply our color to our sunflower. I'm using StazOn ink to stamp the images. I don't want them to get muddy. I do want to be able to see the outlines in this one, so I am using StazOn. And then the colors I have chosen for tonight are Cherry Cobbler, Coastal Cabana, oops, move my stuff out of the way here, Crushed Curry, Early Espresso. Oh, you know what? I might change. No, I'm going to keep the Early Espresso. I was contemplating changing that to Soft Suede. Parakeet Party, Shaded Spruce, and Tahitian Tide. Seems like a lot of colors, but you will see why in a little bit. I'm also using our Stampin' Blend Black Dark. And then I have a Cherry Cobbler and a Shaded Spruce Stampin' Right marker. So the first tip I'm going to give you is, well, you know what? I will wait for that. I'll wait till we're doing it. So we are going to create our sunflower, and I do want to use this entire thing. We're going to be watercoloring. None of it's going to be left white when we're done. So I'm going to take my StazOn ink, and with a large stamp like this, I will take my ink pad to my stamp. So good evening, everybody. We have some viewers on here that I haven't seen for a while. I've got viewers on here that I see almost every time I come on. So we're going to ink that up really good, and then we're going to stamp it. And I'm going to stamp it at about right here. And I am going to press really hard when I'm stamping this, because remember, it is textured. You're going to have not a real solid image, the lines, because of the texture, but it's okay. You're not probably going to notice it when we're all done. It's hard to notice it even now. Okay, so we have our image stamped. I want to make sure that I take my StazOn cleaner immediately to my stamp and clean off that StazOn ink. And I don't have my chamois here, so I'm just going to use this baby wipe. I am going to get my Stampin' Scrub, and we are going to spritz it with some cleaner, and then we're going to clean it with the cleaner on the Stampin' Scrub. So I just have the wet side rub it off and clean it. I guess StazOn cleaner is okay for your rubber stamps, but I like to use our Stampin' Mist because it also conditions the rubber and it's virtually clean. Okay, now we're going to do the stem. So for the stem, my first hint or tip is going to be take one of those 1/2-inch strips that you cut off your basic white. I'm going to make this a little bit longer, and you only need this 1/2-inch strip. I could use a ruler and just draw a straight line, but stems are not straight. So I just want to kind of create a little bit of a curve, not much, with that. So as you can see, oops, it's not much of a curve, but we do have a curve in it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up to where I want my stem. And decide how you want the curve to go. You can go up and down. That's why I make it a little bit longer so I can adjust it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark with a pencil at the bottom of my stem because I'm going to use this twice, and I kind of want that same curvature on the other side. So I've got that lined up. I'm going to take my black Stampin' Blend. And the reason why I'm using the Stampin' Blend is because it is an alcohol marker and we're going to be watercoloring, so we don't want it to smear. So I'm using the fine tip. And when I color, I'm coloring my line. When I draw my line, I'm going to draw it partly on the paper and partly on my watercolor paper. That way it's not a real thick line. So I'm just going to take it, and if it happens to fall off and I have a thick line, that's okay. Okay, so we've got that line. You can see it's not perfectly straight. That's what we want. Got a little bit of a blooper there. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to draw kind of some shading lines, and I'm just going to go very lightly with my marker, and I can draw a couple extra ones there. Now I'm going to move this over, and don't ask me how far over. I'm just going to kind of estimate. I know that my stem starts at this tip. I kind of want it right before this petal. I'm going to line up the bottom here and the top where I want it. And some of those lines that I drew on there may go to this side. It's okay. And so what I'm going to do is very kind of brush this one on. Okay. I'm just going to kind of go like that. I can always fill it in. As you can see, I've got some spots, so I'm just going to fill it in with that curvature. And there's my stem. How easy is that? Now, those lines are wider than this one, but don't worry about it. When all is said and done, you're really not going to notice it. Okay, next we're going to take our leaf image and we're going to put our leaves on. So you can put your leaves on however you want. You want to make sure you ink it up good, and when we stamp, we're going to make sure this end of the leaf is to the stem. Press down, hold it, and lift it. Okay, let's ink it up again. I'm going to put another leaf down here, just like that. I'm going to do 3 leaves. We're going to do 2 on one side and 1 on the other. Not quite lining it up with this one, but not going directly in between. So once again, we need to take our StazOn cleaner, clean off our stamp right away. I really don't have to use the baby wipe since I have my Stampin' Scrub. We can use that. Close up your StazOn ink. I'm going to show you a little tip with that. If you watch my Back to the Basics, you've already learned this. This is the wet side. I can tell because it's got the umbrella and the raindrops, and then dry it. So that's washed and dried. That is the cheapest washer and dryer your husband's going to buy you. Okay, I'm taking the stamp off this block because I'm going to be using that block. You may have noticed when I opened my StazOn cleaner, I have the plastic lid in here. I recommend keeping this lid. Take a Stampin' Dimensional, put it on the top so that holds it on, and then it's be a tighter fit. You don't lose your lid. You don't have to worry about, oh, did I put it on? It's always going on with it because this is an alcohol ink and it does dry by evaporation, and you don't want to go to your pad every time and have to refill it. Okay, so we have our sunflower, and that's basically what we're going to be watercoloring tonight. Now, next tip is I did my first one, and when I did it, I just blocked the ink on here. I learned since then, because the yellow went out too far and it didn't cover up real well when I did my background. So I went into our layering circle dies. The scallop actually fits just about perfectly around the sunflower. It does leave some white spots. It does kind of cut off a couple petals. That's okay because the water is going to evaporate over that. So we're going to be doing the reverse masking. I'm not using this one. I am going to use the parts that we cut out. And I'm going to place it on here where I want my color to go. And the reason why I'm doing this is so it does not bleed too far out on the watercolor paper. When you're watercoloring, you want to watercolor with the lightest color first. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to take our crushed curry and go directly to our block. Okay, so I'm just going to ink that up, and that's pretty heavy. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this for just a second so you can see this. I'm looking at what my sunflower is. Okay, so I want to take a paper towel, a baby wipe. Look at this one, it's really dirty. But I want to just wipe off some of this excess around the outside. Not all of it, but just kind of going around the outside. Now I'm going to take my cherry cobbler Stampin' Write marker. Now I found that if we're going to color around this, and I found that as I color around, because we've got the crushed curry on there, it seems that the cherry cobbler isn't as dark. So this is the second tip. So I'm actually going to dip it into my ink pad and pick up some of that color. And then I'm going to go around the center, and I'm just going to do some color. You can go like that. You could scribble it. It really doesn't matter. Okay, you can go out farther. This does not have to be perfect. Okay, but I want lots of color on there. So I go around twice. The first time, and then I go around the second time, adding more color. Now you may not normally go for the cherry cobbler, but I like my sunflowers to be a little bit brighter. You could use Cajun Craze. You could use Daffodil Delight as your main color, and then the crushed curry around the center. You could use pumpkin pie even. Okay, so I need to bring this in a little bit more, because when I stamp that, it's going to be the opposite side. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to take either a paper towel. In fact, I'm going to use my paper towel because it's dry. And I'm going to wrap it around my finger, and I'm going to take some of this ink off the center. Okay, and the reason being is we're going to color the center with the early espresso, and I don't want all of that crushed curry on there. Okay, some of it's going to bleed onto there. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my stencil. I'm not worried about this drying on here because I have a little trick. I've already got this wet. Sorry. Put this on here how I want it. No rhyme or reason, you guys. Don't worry about it. Okay, so now we're going to grab our Stampin' Spritzer. And for this next part, I'm going to put this over my image because I don't want to get water on there, but I want to show you on camera. So I'm going to take my spritzer, hold it about a foot away, and I'm going to spritz water. Okay, I'm just going to let that sit for a second. Now I'm going to take my wide watercolor brush, make sure it's full of water, and I just want to brush some water on here. Not much, but I do want water on here. Okay, I'm going to take this, I'm going to flip it around. You can move this, see how the ink moves. Do whatever you want. Find that center, and we're going to press down. Ooh, I have a lot of cherry cobbler on here. Okay, see how that petaled? Ooh, I didn't get the yellow on there. That's interesting. Okay, the cherry cobbler bled there. I'm going to clean that off. I want to try to press, I'm going to remove this and see if I get that on there now. Yeah, it went on. Okay, I think because the last time I didn't clean off my block, so my my crushed curry went all over. And there we go. This is colored. Don't worry about that white spot. It's perfectly fine. If it bothers you, you can take your water painter and color it in a little bit, but I like the white. And having the crushed curry go out of the lines is fine. I am going to brush it out just a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm getting water in my brush, and I'm going to start out and pull it in towards my image. Okay, because I don't want it going farther out. I want it coming in. So I am just actually going to, just like that. Okay, I need to clean this brush because I'm going to use it again. And if it's contaminated with another color, it changes the colors. Okay, so now we're going to do the leaves. Well, let's do the stem first. I'm using this long, narrow G block for this part. So I am going to dig through my pile of stamp pads, grab the parakeet party. I'm going to ink up my block. Now you're going to notice that I'm inking up the lighter color here. And then I'm adding a dark color. Now, if I put this over the top, it's a lot wider than my stem is. So I'm going to take my paper towel, once again, kind of line it up how it is, and then just kind of go down along that stem. Now, it is going to bleed a little bit when I put this on, but I don't want it real wide. The parakeet party blends better with the Pacific Point or the Tahitian Tide and the Coastal Cabana. Then what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to remember which side I use, I'm going to take my shaded spruce and I'm going to add it down the side. Okay, I'm going to take my brush, make sure it has water in it, go down that stem so that there's water on my watercolor paper. I'm going to take this and I'm going to press it down. Okay, now if it's too short, I'm dragging it. Okay, just like that. Now you're going to see it goes way out here. I'm actually, oops, this has got, thought I cleaned it really good. I'm just going to soften those lines because we want watercolor. We don't want rough lines. If you don't want the water going out so far, start out here and pull it in. And see how I'm pulling that water into my image. But like I said, it goes pretty good with the Coastal Cabana, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, we need to do the leaves. So now you want to take a block that's close to the size of the leaves. So the small square block is too small, so I am using block B. Once again, I'm going to ink up my block. I am going to place it over my leaf. I'm going to take my baby wipe and I am going to wipe off around my leaf. Okay? Because I don't want all that ink on there. So there's only a small amount of ink there. And every time I color this leaf, I'm going to color it a little bit differently. I'm going to grab my shaded spruce pad because it seems to be fading like my cherry cobbler did. See how much darker it is here? And just pick up a little bit of ink. Okay, once again, I'm going to cover up my image, take my spritzer, and we're going to spritz. Whoops, wrong way. Keep an eye on where that is. I'm going to let it move around a little bit, flip it over, and I forgot to wet my paper. Just going to wet it a little bit. This way it bleeds or it spreads a little bit better. And just put it down on top of my leaf. Okay, I've got a lot of pooling going on. I can take my baby wipe and clean up some of that. And it's okay. Watercoloring does not stay in the lines. I'm going to wipe off my block, ink it up again, and go through the same process. Taking either the paper towel or the baby wipe and wiping off the block. You know, this technique is so much fun to do. And it's quite easy. I find, I lost my cat. I find that when people are watercoloring, they try to stay in the lines. They get upset when it doesn't stay in the lines. This one, I'm going to color up the center a little bit more and leave the outside lighter. Okay, take your wide brush, or you could take the narrower brush. We're going to wet this a little bit. Make sure I have water in there. Spritz it. Almost forgot to spritz it. I'm going to spritz it off camera this time. You guys have watched me spritz twice now. Let the inks move around a little bit. You can manipulate them by just moving your block around. Put it on here and smash. There we go. We have some ink out here. So I'm just going to wipe it off. Not all of it's going to come off. And see how the shading is a little bit different with each leaf? You want that. Okay. Our last leaf. Grab my paper towel. Wipe the perimeter. So how many of you think that you could do this? I am sure you can do it. I have confidence in you. Okay, I'm just kind of scribbling down the side of this one. I might do some at the base here. I'm not coloring exact. Once again, I'm going to take my water painter, add some water here, grab my spritzer, spritz my block. Ooh, that one's got a lot of water. So I'm just going to flip it. And if I don't want it to go way out, I don't press as hard. Grab my baby wipe, clean up the edges just a little bit. Okay. Now, our sunflower is pretty dry. So we're going to do the center now. And that center is pretty wet. So what I am going to use next is the small or the medium watercolor brush and my early espresso. I want to get some ink into the lid. So what I'm doing is I'm closing this and I'm squeezing hard. And what that does is that's going to give you a pool of ink there to work with. Now, when I do this, I do have water in my brush. And I'm going to pick up some ink here. Kind of, we'll do it here. You can see this. Pick up some ink and I'm going to drop it. Okay, then I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit and I am going to spread that around a little bit. I do want those little, well, those got to be a little bit more rectangle than I wanted, but I want to layer on dots because the center of your sunflower does have those dots in there, or little, that's where your seeds are. Okay, now when that dries, it's going to be a little bit lighter. I'm going to clean my brush out really good. And this is why I do the dark color last, because it seems like the dark color is so hard to get out. Make sure that this brush is clean also for this next step. Okay, we're going to do the background. So, what do you guys think so far? Okay, oh, you're liking it. Awesome. Kathleen says she's never done watercoloring this way. She's used her blocks for backgrounds, but not for actually coloring. Yeah, you can do, there's so much you can do. I just love playing just because I love watercoloring. I love painting. Okay, so I have my ink in the lid on my Coastal Cabana. Getting that ink up into that lid. Move our other colors away. I better close up my Stampin' Right marker so it doesn't dry out. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create our background. And I'm going to start at the bottom and work up. And I'm going to start on this side and kind of work around. So I'm going to take my brush, my watercolor brush, get some water there, and I'm going to brush some water. Now, I'm not going to go all the way around because I do have a fan going and it's drying it as fast as it is. I'm putting it on. I'm watering down my Coastal Cabana. See how I'm not using it full strength? It's watered down. Okay, and we're just going to color with our Coastal Cabana. And I am squirting water out at the same time. Okay, so I want to get up here. And I'm actually going into the crushed curry a little bit. And this is where, when I didn't use that mask, where it kind of, it didn't look right, should I say. Now, I want a little bit of depth in the background, so I'm going into my Tahitian Tide, and I'm going to do some dots, and then I'm going to go back over and just blend those out. Okay, I'm going to add some water to the top. So remember how I said I'm going from one side and working over. It's okay that it's got the color in it. Now, by taping your watercolor paper down, it's going to prevent it from curling also. A little bit of the Tahitian Tide. Just kind of keep going. Remember that it's going to be a little bit lighter when it dries. And I'm probably going to dry this with my heat gun. I usually don't like to use my heat gun to dry because it manipulates the water and the effect that you have. So see how I just keep going over it. It's kind of spreading out on its own. Add some water. Oops. It got kind of dark there. But see how when it goes into the parakeet party, it's fine. Actually, I am loving this one. I am so glad that I learned from my first one. And this takes practice. And not a lot of practice, because to be honest, I have done this technique before on for backgrounds and for coloring some images, but this is the first one I've done for a piece of art that I'm going to have on my wall. Okay, I'm going to bring this into right here a little bit and see how it's kind of turning green. I'm using Tahitian Tide because that's a little bit deeper. We'll add a little bit of a shadow around our sunflower a little bit. Just keep dabbing it. We don't want it solid. Okay, so believe it or not, it's done. What do you think so far? Okay, I'm going to have to turn my heat gun on because I want it to dry before I remove it. So it is going to be a little bit noisy here. I've got that on. Maybe if I'm going to cover up my mic a little bit. Okay, I think that's good. So now I'm going to start peeling up my Scotch tape around the edges, and hopefully it won't tear. I'm going to use my heat gun to warm up that adhesive. I don't know if you guys knew that trick or not. But see how it just pulls it right up, and it does not tear your paper. A little bit warm. Got to turn it off. I'm going to start all the edges. So there we go. Well, that one's coming up pretty good. And it's okay if I have those little edges. In fact, I kind of like when it's not a perfectly straight edge. Okay, we're going to go all the way around here. Get this edge. Okay, oops. I didn't think we'd be able to get that last piece up. Whoops. But I don't want my heat gun to drop down. We're going to go ahead and put this underneath, get that started. Okay, I'm going to have to heat this up because it is pulling up my paper. You know, I need to be careful using my heat gun on my mats because I had my Stampin' Up! Silicone mat, which is the black one, and because I embossed on it a couple times while doing a live, it started to bubble up and just not be flat. Okay, so what do you guys think so far? I thought, you know what, I could have put a bee on here. So here's my frame. It's just to frame my head laying around. I put a piece of Bermuda Bay in there. It's not perfectly, but I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what this is going to look like when it's done. So I'm going to adhere it to the cardstock, and then that's going to be my framed piece. I could add some dots in the background if I wanted. I could, you know, plenish it, but I think that it's gorgeous the way it is. This is going to be in my stamp studio. Now, are you guys excited to see my first one? Okay, this is when I did not use that mask around the outside here. And it's still beautiful, but see how the yellow got way out here and it turned it kind of green. I like both of them, but definitely two different looks. I think most people will probably be more appealed, you know, this would be more appealing, but I know watercoloring is watercoloring and we have enough greens and stuff down here that I think that this one works perfectly too. And the center didn't quite get as dark. If you don't want it that dark, you could use the soft suede. Crumb cake would be too light, but soft suede I think would be good. But, you know, I might I might do a third one and do them in a frame and have 3 of them on there. So, thank you so much, Janet. I'm glad you like that. I am going to move this down just a little bit so I don't have to stand on my toes to talk to you. So I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. It's something a little bit different. It's not a card, but I love doing home decor pieces, whether it's framed art, collaging, pieces that I can put up around the holiday time or anytime in little nooks and crannies throughout my house. This set has a smaller sunflower in it. So if you had a small place that you wanted to put a small frame or put 3 small frames, and don't think that your sunflowers have to only be yellow. I've done them pink and I love those too. So I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. This will be up on my blog and I will have everything that I used listed on there. The size is just the size of the watercolor paper, and you could cut that down even. You could do a square, and you wouldn't get as much of the background then, but you could, you know, because the paper is only 5 inches wide, and you could only go 5 inches tall then. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and any of the products actually all of the products are available at my online store. So hope to see you guys again soon. And until we meet again, happy stamping, everybody. Bye-bye.